No, but I want to talk about how good looking he is.
Oh, wow.
Really?
You know what? I think he's so handsome.
Yes.
But I think part of that is because of what's coming from inside him.
For sure.
Just beautiful.
You are so sweet.
Christine, do you think he's cute?
I think that he's cute, but I'll tell you what. He's got a gorgeous wife.
Thank you. That's what I was waiting for.
There,
Calm down,
I'm just
everyone.
letting you know.
Calm down.
Taken.
Chris, have you ever been on a show quite like this about faith?
Absolutely not.
No,
This is
okay.
one of a kind.
So you are Christine Kym's and my pastor,
Yes.
and the three of us can be found on Sundays singing at the top of our lungs. That might be me, regardless of
That
key.
was you. That was you.
So we're called God's Table, and we're so excited to have you. And you mentioned something about the table.
I mean, the table is a fascinating thing because it is the place that we can find commonality. And even if you look in the life of Jesus, his greatest miracles and moments didn't happen in a temple or synagogue. They happened in a home and around a table. And he had the ability to bring people from all different backgrounds and experiences together at a table. And somehow it became an equalizer where everybody had an equal place. And heaven is described as a banquet. It'll be around a table. And so I think this is a little taste of heaven.
I love that.
Oh, I love that. This reminds me of a message that you preached at our church last August. And it was literally 4 days after the four of us girls sat at the table at the Polo Lounge. But you spoke about coming to the table and the table of God. And you talked about having a feast at the table. And it was literally 4 days after Tracey heard from God and said, this is God's table. Then I go to church and you literally preached a message about God's table. And then I texted all of you guys, this is confirmation.
Yes.
And then the following week, I couldn't make it out to Malibu. So I rushed over for church to Bel Air. Guess what the message was at Bel Air the second weekend in a row? About being at God's table.
Wow.
Wow.
So
It's
that, and I have the notes from both sermons, yours and his, about being at God's table. And it was within days of us deciding we were going to do God's table.
I've just had
I love that.
a revelation.
What's that?
I'm staggered by this. Home was always, dinner time was at the table was never good.
Oh, wow.
There was such arguing because mom was Jewish, daddy wasn't, daddy was Christian. And the table, I think that's part of the reason that I resisted that name.
Wow, Dyan.
That is huge.
I resisted. I did a thing called God's Party on the CBS lot for 13 years. But when they talked about God's table, I didn't know why.
Wow.
And just because of what you said about what happened at the table.
Wow.
Whoa.
This is the healing of that.
Oh.
Because the table was never a happy place.
Wow. And God's healing that for you now.
Yes,
He
that's what
really
I'm
is,
saying. It's
because
the
now
healing
it's
of
so
that.
beautiful.
And I think that can go out to so many who don't sit down at a
That's
table
right.
to eat because there's not a oneness, because there's not a harmony, because there's not that love.
It's so prevalent.
It is.
today.
There isn't.
People
Yes,
that they
there-
eat at the
such
counter,
discord.
they eat on
Right.
the run.
How about in the
they
car?
don't eat as a family
I
in
always
the
see
cars.
people in the car.
Family dinners
And
are a
he's
thing
got,
of the past.
funny enough, we will get into this, but Chris and Julie
Unbelievable.
wrote a book called Fighting for Family, and it's great. And it shows Chris and his 4 children.
The most beautiful sons.
Family.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And daughter Joy.
And
They
daughter,
had
sorry.
one baby girl,
Yes.
Joy. And you know, you're so right, Dyan. It's talking about fighting for family, because there are a lot of people around a table that fight, or people that never have a dad like
Or that
him.
are looking at their phone. You go
Correct.
to a
That's right.
restaurant,
Yes.
and what do you
That's right.
see?
You're right.
The entire
Everybody's
family
like this.
sitting there.
That's right.
My sons say that they're the last generation
Yes,
of
they are.
kids that literally had to come to the dinner table
Yeah.
every night, but they feel that they learned connection around the dinner
100%.
table.
Yep.
100%.
Well, already with Chris, we're having
healing.
breakthroughs. Tell us what you think about all of
No,
this.
as we were writing this book, you know, the premise is that people know how to fight with family. They don't know how to fight for family. And because of family is a painful thing for many people, because of past experiences, the idea of family for some people is very triggering. But we go back and look at what does God say about his church. He calls it a family. In Psalm 68, it says God places the lonely in families. Some translations say in a home. And what we found is like spiritual family can be a really healing place if you've had a broken upbringing and family. And I feel like there's a redemption God is doing around family The last passage of the Old Testament says that God will turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And we are in a time where it's the most connected generation because of the beautiful parts of social media and all that, but it's not true connection that people are longing for. And as we were writing this book about true connection and true belonging, the U.S. Surgeon General put out this 85-page document, and it was called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And you found that even during COVID, where people were isolated. I don't know many people that thrived during COVID, because what it did was it isolated you from community and connection, and it brought up things there that in a lot of ways maybe some healing needed to be done. But I really believe that the table is God's plan of healing and bringing people together. And I remember one Sunday I was talking about the table, and I had a friend who's an attorney reach out to me, and he said, hey, this is really interesting, but there was a study done that if there were two parties that were in conflict legally, what they found was that if they brought these two people together at a table and they had a shared basket of food, whether it was fruit or a snack, it didn't matter what it was, but they were forced to share food from the same plate, the odds of reconciliation went up exponentially. And so Jesus was intentional about the table and even about food, because there's something disarming. Now there can be something triggering, because I've heard a lot of people that had similar experiences around the table, but there's something really beautiful that can happen that disarms us, because the table is a place of vulnerability where people can actually let their guard down.
That's beautiful.
But you know, God's table.
I know,
I think that's what
right?
y'all are doing. I think that's what y'all are doing.
But you know what? The happy place is in your church.
That's right.
The thing that is so interesting to me is the three of us were holding hands, singing, and crying. We were sobbing.
Yeah.
And I do it every Sunday.
I know.
What is that?
I mean,
Not just because I have a bad voice, but I mean.
I think it's releasing the weak.
Yeah. What do you feel, Chris?
I mean, I think it's that. I think it's the presence of God. And there was a study that was done years ago by a group called Barna Research, and they interviewed, it was 1,000+ people. And basically, there's a resurgence of people coming back to church, but there was a mass exodus for decades. And what people were saying in the study was they go to church to find something there they can't find anywhere else. And what they said they were looking for is the presence of God. And I think that's the thing, is the church is called the house of God for a reason. God is a father. That's how he, reveals himself as a father. He speaks to us as children, and the church is meant to be a house. And years ago, when I was in a really difficult time as a leader, the Lord led me to this passage in Isaiah 66. It happened twice in 30 minutes, where literally I didn't flip through it. My Bible opened up. I go, God, I'm at a crisis of vision. And then it basically says, the Lord said, what is the house that you would build for me? What is the place of my rest? And he said, this is the one that I'll look to. He who is humble and contrite and trembles at my word. And God is looking for a place of rest. God is looking for a place that he wants to dwell and be. And so I think what people are experiencing is God comes where he's wanted. And if we say, Holy Spirit, come fill this place. This is your house. It's not my house. It's not vintage house. I don't need my name on this. We want your name to be the name lifted. Then people come into that. I think that is the thing that no one else can offer in the world, is the presence of God. Now, God's presence can go with us everywhere, and that's the intent, but his house is meant to be the place of his
community.
Right. Why are people afraid of faith, do you think?
I think people have had negative experiences with church, or something that the church is meant to represent what God is like. As Christians, we're supposed to show what Jesus is like, and I think for many people have had negative experiences. I think it was Gandhi that said, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. And I think
interesting.
I rarely tell people I'm a pastor, because I think immediately there's a judgment or a belief and a barrier that's created. So just
the same thing that happens when you say God.
Yeah, that's right. People have their own negative experiences or judgment that comes up. So I don't know if people are as scared of faith as they are their idea of faith, or their idea of God, or their judgment of God. And so I think that's where, what I hope is to represent what I believe Jesus is really like, what I believe his church is intended to be. We're going to do that very imperfectly, but I think he is the longing of every human heart. And there's this verse in Ecclesiastes, says God has set eternity in the hearts of men. And I think what we've come to believe is there's a God-sized hole in every heart, and people are looking to fill it in lots of different ways, but he's the answer they're looking for.
100%.
You know, Tracey, you said the three of you. I haven't been to church in years. I understand that when you feel safe, you can let go of all the stuff that you've been holding on to. That's part of it, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. we've all had experiences, but for years I haven't been to church. But I think just after being here for a few minutes that I'll come and visit your church because my friends like it so much.
Wow.
You know, just to hear more of what you're talking about, because what you seem to me to be is very selfless.
He is.
You really have put God first. You can hear when that happens. You can hear that tone that's real.
Authenticity. Yeah.
You can hear when it's fake.
Right.
And I think that word, God, brings up so much in so many because people have been let down and disappointed.
Yeah, and by leaders as well, absolutely.
If you don't know where to go or how to go, I know it's a schlep, but it'll be worth it.
No, it's a schlep.
It'll be worth
That
it.
really should be underneath.
I know it's a schlep.
That's the tagline.
Oh my gosh, that is really cool. Oh my That's all John said yesterday was an hour to get home. When Jonathan, so my husband is not sure about his faith in God, and when we came to Vintage, you and your wife were so welcoming in a way. It was anointed.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the back row of your church, and all I know is I'm praising God, and the worship is so amazing there. My eyes were closed, and I look over, and here's Pastor Chris literally going like this to my husband. And I just started bawling because you didn't know us well, but you came up and you gave John
What
the
he
most
needed.
beautiful hug. I don't think he's ever had a hug from a pastor in his life. And it was so beautiful, and I was so grateful. That is the authenticity of you and Julie and of the church.
Yeah.
You don't have to know people super well, but you love them.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
really love
He does.
everyone who walks in that door, whether you
so
know them or
great.
not. You didn't really know us.
No.
And you stopped and gave John a hug.
You brought up being imperfect, you know. We all are imperfect, but maybe some people feel that because they've been imperfect, that they shouldn't come to church, or how do they find God again, or how do they find their faith? We know, you know, you've talked very openly about things that have happened in your life.
Temptation.
I'd like to hear about some of the
that's
things
what
that
we're
have
going to
happened
get
to you.
into. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share anything. And I would just first say, Jesus, the people that he had the hardest time with, and I'm underplaying that, were the religious people that did all the exterior, but their hearts were far from him. And Jesus, when he would surround himself, what it said was the outcast, the quote sinners, the people that nobody else would come near, the religious people would judge, and he sat at a table with them. His response was, I didn't come for the righteous, I came for the unrighteous. He said, I didn't come for the healthy, I came for the sick. And I think somehow the church at times has gotten this backwards, where we've tried to create this veneer that everybody should come and they have it all together, and then people learn to perform for God, and that's just not the way that we're called to live.
So good.
It's
To
dangerous.
perform for God, that's
You've
right.
just got to be
Can we
authentic.
relate to that?
So I think the thing that I love so much about Jesus was his accessibility, his availability. He never lost touch with humanity. And, you know, even as a pastor, as I said before, I think a lot comes with that title. A lot of expectation comes with that. I view myself as a child of God. That's my true identity. I play a role as a pastor. I take it seriously, but that's not, at the end of the day, if I was not a pastor tomorrow, I'm okay. There were years where I wasn't that. And part of our journey, we write about this, and our kids know our stories. We got married very young, Julie and I did, and by the grace of God, last week we had our 25-year anniversary. And it is a testimony of the goodness of God. And our kids are all walking with Jesus in a very authentic way. But we went through an affair year 3, and Julie would share this, but she came out of a background of sexual abuse that had never really worked through, and then we jumped into marriage and ministry, and with that, all the pressure and expectations of then everybody thinking you have to be perfect and you have to have it together. And whether that was spoken or perceived, we kind of fell underneath that. And I think the biggest challenge people have at times as pastors and in ministry is, where do you go if you're struggling? Who do you share with? And so many pastors learn to hide, and they learn to live in secret. And it's a dangerous thing. And that's why we've seen so many leaders fall, is you have these parts of your life that you feel like, I can't share with anybody, because if I do, I'm gonna get fired or I'm gonna get exposed. And so how do you learn to walk in the light and true vulnerability and all those things? So we went through a brokenness in year 3, and I want to tell you guys this story because we put it in the book. But the day that I found out about the affair, and I was devastated and had no idea it had been going on. And I wish Julie was here to share her part, because We have the marriage we have because God is a God of healing and redemption.
Yes.
And he takes broken pieces, and just like when a bone in your arm breaks, when it heals rightly, it heals back stronger than it was before. I know that's not everyone's story, but that is part of our journey, is God taking these broken pieces and mending them back together. But the day that I found out, I was 24, and I felt like I had nobody to call. I didn't know who to talk to, and I drove to a Starbucks, and I sat at a table for two, and I had my big life application study Bible that Julie had actually given me a few years earlier when we were dating. And I sat at this table, and I said, God, what do I do? I don't know where to turn. I don't know who to call. I was in total shock and disbelief. And you guys, God is my witness, I dropped the Bible on the table. I did not flip through it. I dropped it. I said, God, what do I do? And I looked down, and it was open to Hosea chapter 3, verse 1. And here's what the verse said. The first verse my eyes see. The Lord said to me, take her and love her as I love her, although she is an adulterous woman and loved by another man.
Oh my God.
Wow.
No, here's the craziest part.
Wow.
Underneath that verse was Julie's handwritten signature, signed and dated from 3 years earlier, which to this day she doesn't remember signing my Bible. Why would she sign it? And why would she sign it on
that page?
that page?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
God spoke to me as clearly, and he said, if you will love Julie and forgive Julie, I'll redeem your marriage. And that led us on a journey of healing. And healing does not come like that.
No,
it is
doesn't.
usually
No,
a long
it doesn't.
process, and it was for us.
We all watched streaming on Angel, King of Kings, and it's an animated movie. It starts through Charles Dickens, but then it goes into the story of Jesus.
I loved it.
I
did
loved
too.
it.
And I love that it was told so differently through Charles Dickens' eyes.
I didn't like the movie.
I loved it. Oh.
No, this film is not just for little kids, it's for big kids, it's for everyone.
Right.
It's so
I do
important
too.
to
Gentle.
share this with children, but people of all ages. Even if somebody is not a believer, it was so well done. The animation was phenomenal.
Yeah. And the cast
Oh, Uma
is,
Thurman,
it's
Oscar
brilliant.
Isaac,
It's
Ben
brilliant.
Kingsley,
Ben
Pierce
Kingsley.
Brosnan.
So I think anybody that has a doubt about who Jesus was, it spells it out so gently that anyone and everyone can understand it.
Yeah.
All you have to do is click the link and stream this on Angel, and we promise you, you'll be really glad you did.
Now streaming on Angel.
And so you just fast forward our journey of a lot of pain and loss and a lot of pain in ministry and things we've been through. And then we moved to LA 7 years ago, and my wife got diagnosed with cancer. We didn't have a home. We had 4 kids, and we had nowhere to live. And we ended up moving 20 times our first 6 months in LA. That's a longer story for another day. And then her cancer, she went into remission, and her cancer came back during COVID. And I say all that to say is we have been through a lot. But I think a lot of times it's like I've got this big scar on my arm. We want to hide our scars, but scars are not a remembrance of where we got hurt. It's a memory of where we got healed. And what we found is the places of the scars that we oftentimes want to hide because of shame are the places God wants to use us the most. And so I can't tell you how many couples we've sat down with in our living room that have been where we've been, and we can say, no, there is hope on the other side. I don't know how your story is going to play out, but I know it's the same God.
Wow,
it's the same
that's
God.
so good, Chris. And you know what I love about you is that there's an authenticity. He doesn't put himself like, I've got it all together. I know. Half the time he looks like he just came off the surfboard and has walked up to the pulpit, which
Love
I
that.
love so
I
much.
love it.
He's in his cool Converse and he's like up there. But he also makes you feel like if you've stumbled, if you've fallen, like I did yesterday, I had a meltdown. He's like, it's okay, because I have too. So one Sunday we were all there, and you said that, everyone faces temptations, and that you had a temptation personally. And I think a lot of men and women can relate to that. So
Yeah, it was very interesting, and I talk to guys about this a lot, because I think one of the lies or the beliefs is, okay, if and when I get married, then I won't struggle with lust anymore. And I found once I got married to this beautiful woman, and we really, as best we know how, tried to do this well, and we tried to honor God through our dating and engagement. And I started struggling with pornography after I got married in my 20s. And I felt like such a fraud because I was pastoring, had this beautiful wife, and I had this part of me that I got opened up to in 6th grade. And I didn't I actually, when I was a young pastor, I shared it with another pastor about my struggle, and his word was, hey, in the future, don't share those kind of things with me because it could cause all of us to stumble. So as a young pastor,
Holy mother.
what I believed was,
Don't
not
tell
only I shouldn't, I can't. So I'll just live with this part of me and I'll manage it.
But that's not even scriptural. We're
It's
supposed
not-
to share.
we're supposed to
our
share,
sins when
yeah.
so
And
just
then
get
we
'em
get
out and rid
healed
of
when
them.
it says when we
Yes.
share those things. So I spent, years in my 20s and early 30s, which I mean, I'm not trying to minimize. I wouldn't call it an addiction, but it was something I would run to.
Yeah.
And it was something that I kept very hidden. And so that was this part of me that I felt like inauthentic. And I had a moment where my wife was out of town, and I remember in my mind that lie coming in like, no one's gonna know, just do it. Like, no one's gonna know. And so that Julie was out of town, I looked at pornography this one night in particular, and I'm just riddled with shame. And the next day, my accountability partner calls me. And he was an older gentleman, a pastor that I had so much respect for, and he said, hey, you wanna tell me what happened last night?
Oh my God.
And
Wow.
that report went through, and he
did
saw
not.
it. Oh yeah. And you guys,
was a blessing.
Yeah.
It was a gift. It didn't feel like it at the time.
No.
I felt caught. And so I remember getting on this call with him, and he was very loving, but he was very firm. But I remember him saying, you need to tell Julie tonight. Wow. And I did not want to. But he said, your authority is gonna be based upon your purity.
That's so good.
And I felt the weight of it, not perfection, not performance, but I have to get to a place of living fully in the light. And there were a few times after that I struggled, but I will say, one, God set me free from that.
Yeah.
I know I'm capable of anything, but I think I tell men all the time, or women, I mean,
Yeah.
if that's a struggle, Jesus has made a way for us to walk in
Yes.
victory. And there's no shame when you struggle. But I also think sometimes people get, well, I'm just going to struggle the rest of my life. And then the expectation is, well, you're just going to struggle the rest of your life.
Right.
It has been a struggle in my life, but God brought freedom.
Let me ask you a
that's so
question
good.
because I didn't know. I work with recovering addicts, and almost every one of the boys, I've worked with them for years and years, porn.
Yeah.
They're all, is it no responsibility? Is that,
Great
what is
question.
the attraction?
Well, I think, so even when I was growing up, if you wanted to look at porn, you had to work really hard. You had to go know somebody. I had in 6th grade, my buddy's dad had Playboy subscriptions.
Right.
We'd sneak over,
Yeah.
find the magazines, go hide, go look at them. Now, it's so accessible.
Yeah.
And so if you have a moment of weakness, you pick up your phone and you can go anywhere you want to
100%.
go.
And you can go on Instagram and see
Yeah.
what she had for breakfast this morning, on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think it's an escape for one. I think it's an outlet to express yourself in a sexual way that it's a quick, easy outlet. But I think the danger is it brings such a dehumanizing and a desensitization to what is holiness and how do we even see.
or what is love?
But
even.
now,
What is love?
when we stumble, for a takeaway for our audience, like when we stumble, are there steps that we can take, or what should we do? And not just in the porn space, in everything.
Anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look in the garden, as soon as sin entered in, the first response of humanity was to go hide.
Hide.
It was hide and make our own covering
Yeah.
to hide our shame, which is the opposite of what Jesus came to do. He came to bring us into the light and to remove our shame. It says it actually says to remove the shame of our youth. I think it's in Hosea. It says that. And so I think the first thing is our sin does not define us. God has already defined it. It's not our identity. And so I think if we can walk in a place of openness, and I'm not saying everyone needs to know everything, but I have found we need a few trusted people that we can walk in the light with. And as you mentioned earlier in James, it says if we confess our sins one to another, we will be healed. And I found it to be true that it's not just that we're going to be free, it's that we actually can experience healing when we walk in openness and authenticity. And I think that is where sometimes the church has missed it, is people come in believing I have to have it all together if anybody knew. And I'm going, no. This is the place that anyone and everyone should be able to come as you are to find freedom, to find true love and community, and so that I can walk in a place of transparency and vulnerability. So I think practically, the first thing is David in Psalm, when he was caught in adultery, his response was, search me, O God, and know my heart, and see if there's any offensive way in me. And the first place is, God, I'm coming before you, search my heart in a place of true repentance and confession. And then who are the people around me that I can walk in true authentic vulnerability and accountability with.
That's so good, Chris. It really is.
Now I know you had your dad with you last week. It was so nice to see him.
Yeah.
And that you said that you grew up in the church. But when was the moment you knew you were going to be a pastor?
It is so funny that you asked that, because if you would ask me as a 7th grade Chris Bennett, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would have told you I want to be a pastor, which I don't know.
Wow.
My granddad was a pastor.
Oh.
I would carry my Bible with me in my backpack, and I was friends with everybody in high school, and I was, well liked and all those things. But for whatever reason, I had this North Star that always pointed me to God. And I look back and I know that's not everyone's story, and I feel very grateful that I never had a moment of wavering. Like, I always had a love for God, and God, I want to serve you as best I know how. I will say there was so much ambition in me as a kid that was in my 20s, where I look back now and realize there was a mixed bag of love for God and love for Chris Bennett, and trying to
Oh, we don't understand
Yeah.
that. Not at
right,
all.
right.
God's table or my table. I'm not sure.
I want to change the name.
But brokenness will beat the ambition out of you. And I think that's what we went through, enough pain of just going, God, I don't want to, Psalm 127:1 says, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build labor in vain. And I don't want to build anything He's not asked me to build.
Wow. That's amazing.
I just want to know if we have viewers out there that are watching that are really struggling in their marriage, specifically because of an affair or
Yes.
pornography. What advice would you give them as, like, as soon as they get done watching this, what could be their next step?
Wow. Yeah, and I think sometimes we have felt like we don't ever want to impose our story on someone else's, and everyone has their own journey to walk.
Yeah.
But I will say forgiveness is the path forward. And forgiveness is for yourself as much as it is for the other person. I think sometimes the belief, because my wife, being sexually abused as a young person, she ended up confronting the person that had done this to her. She did that years later. She did it for her, not for him.
Yeah.
And I watched her walk in such freedom because of forgiveness. And I've heard it said before, unforgiveness is like drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies.
Right.
And so I think for anyone that is dealing with it, forgiving doesn't excuse what happened.
Right.
And
So
forgiving
good.
someone doesn't always equal reconciliation.
100%.
It doesn't always mean you have to be.
Those things are so important. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we think forgiveness is, oh, I've forgiven them. It's like it didn't happen.
Right.
But I love what you said. Yes, it did happen. We're not saying it didn't. We're not, erasing that from our story.
Yeah.
But forgiveness is for us,
Yeah, it is.
not them.
For sure.
That's right. And we're commanded to love, we're not commanded to like. And I think there's a distinction where, Jesus says if somebody curses you, bless them. Love your enemies.
Yes.
And He doesn't say you have to be in friendship and relationship with all of
That's
them.
right.
But it's so that our heart stays free and tender, I think.
So another little, just going in a different direction is, I was in a really rough time in my life. My husband had just passed. I was just fully getting over cancer. My son was in New York. And I felt like you had said earlier about the loneliness epidemic. I was happy and I had a lot of friends, but there was that missing part in me. And so I go to this little church, you guys, and it was in a gymnasium of an elementary school in Malibu. And no offense, Chris, but sometimes the floor in the gymnasium was a little tacky from peanut butter, peanut butter and jelly from the 5-year-olds, And we have fold-up chairs, and you have to get your own chair and fold it up and put it down. And he comes in his Converse, from the surfing, and it
don't
was,
surf.
he doesn't surf, but I'm going to make it that way. I think
Better
it sounds
story, it's a
good.
better
Yeah,
story.
better story. Why let facts get
Malibu.
in the way of a good story?
100%.
And so anyway, I go, and I'm used to being in these big grand churches, and the pulpit is gold and everything. And you guys, I have to tell you, I walked in there, and I felt, like you had said about the tears, I felt the presence of God. There was such an
100%.
authenticity there. And I felt that the Holy Spirit comes there. And I know it's not Chris, but Chris is the leader of it. And you do connect to the leader. But when I said to Chris that I wanted to rededicate my life to the Lord, because I had accepted Christ when I was 5, he put me in a blow-up hot tub that was cold, and it was outdoors, and I did a baptism. And when I went underwater, I just felt like water rushed over me, and I felt all things new. And he had made these t-shirts for everyone who gets baptized, and it said all things new. And Chris, you baptizing me, and I know it was the Lord, but everything in my life became new after that. Everything became new.
Incredible.
And I met Tim, and I got married, and I moved to Virginia Beach, and I have a different purpose, and all things are new. And you opened that door for me, so I will forever be grateful.
So kind.
Oh, that's
Thank
beautiful.
you, Kym. It's an honor.
It's so beautiful.
And I want to encourage everybody to get baptized by Chris.
We need to get that blow up
Yeah,
pool
exactly.
Bring it
back.
in. Bring it in.
Yeah.
Can the water be warm?
I know, right?
We've worked on that. We're working on the warm.
I love what you shared today, and I love going to your church. But what I like a lot is people are watching thinking, I have a porn addiction, or I've cheated on my boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever they're thinking, or I've done something else, and I just don't feel God's ever gonna love me, or I'm ever allowed to even walk into a church building. And they feel super afraid because of the things that they've done. And because of your authenticity and your willingness to share, I believe that's going to bring so many people, especially people who are watching, to be open to stepping foot into a church or opening their Bible or just asking God. So
Opening themselves to God, because you said you haven't gone to a church, and there are other ways.
I love
and now
it.
you're open to
There are
going to
other
a
ways.
church like
But you know what you said, Kym, I'm sure touched so many people out there, because it's one thing to talk about God, but once you experience God, there's a big difference. Talk, da, 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 da. But once you really experience that power inside,
There's nothing like it.
it changes your life.
Yes.
So if you're resisting, that's okay.
Yeah.
But when you feel like you're safe enough to yield to that power, even where you are right now at home,
Yeah.
even where you are right now,
Yeah.
to just say, I don't know if you're real, and I've resisted you, but if you're real, I'm going to be quiet. Can you let me feel that?
Love that, Dyan.
And I love this book. Thank
Yes.
you so much for bringing it. I'm taking this.
Yeah,
by
there's
the way.
yours.
I'm taking it. Fighting for Family. Chris
Wow.
and Julie Bennett.
Yes.
Chris, we love you. Thank you
Yes,
for
we
being
do.
here.
Thank you
God's
so
table.
much for being here.
Thank you all for letting me be here.
And we love you guys, and thanks for joining us at God's table, because there's a place for
Everyone at
Everyone.
God's table.
If you believe that movies should amplify the light to the world,
And if you care about what movies are in the theater or what shows are on television, you know what you do?
what?
You join the Angel Guild.
Join the Angel
That's
Guild.
right. And did you guys know that being a member of the Angel Guild allows you and anyone else who joins the Angel Guild to literally vote on which projects Angel will bring to the world?
Then you can decide what movies are made.
Yes.
And what
Isn't that
movies
amazing?
you can send your children to.
Yes. And grandchildren.
Yes.
If you join the Angel Guild, this gives you the opportunity not only to watch this film, King of Kings, that we've been chatting about, but also to watch a catalog of content that you really appreciate and enjoy. So, the moral of the story, join the Angel Guild.
Also, that means you don't have to leave home.
But you can do both. You can see Angel Studios in the movie theaters or in your own home.
See, I like the option.
I love that. Go join the guild.
Go
Right
join
now.
the Guild, you guys.
Now streaming on Angel.